Okay, last time we generated a major scale along a string. Where is it? Right here, using two tetrachords, and the major scale tetrachords look the same: whole step, half step on the bottom. Then there was a whole step in the middle that separated the two. Then whole step, half step. All right. So what I'd like to do is just move ahead, and then we looked at modes. Is that making you all dizzy? There we go. All right. Starting to get Zoom brain doing this all day. All right, so the modes are derived from the major scale. And what we said last time is we have our two tetrachords for the major scale. Whole, half, whole, half. And in this, to make the modes, we start, I'll do it this way. To make the modes, we start with the major scale, and we play G, A, B, C, whole step to D, E, F sharp, G. And then backwards, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. So what we talk about when we talk about a scale is that it's like a mathematical set. It's a set of notes. And for our purposes with our Western music, they always occur in this order, in alphabetical order. However, where you start changes the sound, or what we call the modality. So when we do G major, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, we get our typical Western major scale that we've all come to love and know as our happy little scale. So what happens if we take that same set of notes and start on a different scale degree? Say we start on the second scale degree. We get A, and we run the same set of notes. We get A, whole step, because that's what happened between A here. Then we get a half step between B and C, and a whole step. That's our bottom tetrachord on this. Whole, half, whole. Then there's a hole in the middle. And then we get an upper tetrachord that goes whole, half, whole. So this Dorian scale has a kind of similarity to the major scale in that it has, well, what I call symmetrical or mirrored tetrachords. So here we get A, B, C, D. Another whole step is E, F sharp, G, A. Doesn't sound major or minor though, does it? Oh, sorry. And that's a Dorian scale. A lot of folk music uses Dorian scale. The third degree of scale is Phrygian. And here we have, again, a mirrored kind of scale. So we have half, B to C, whole, whole, whole in the middle, half, whole, whole. This is on the third scale degree. It's called Phrygian. We often use the Phrygian scale it's often associated with flamenco music. So we get B, half, whole to D, whole, half, so that's our Phrygian scale. Now, I'm not going to go through examples this time. We'll if you really want to know, we'll do that course in a couple of weeks that will dig in, and I'll show examples, and I'll show exactly why the scale sounds like it does and where the tensions are and how that affects the music that you're playing.
Michael,
Yeah,
and all of these modes,
yep.
Is the first note the root?
Yes. Psychologically, psychoacoustically, whatever note you start on becomes home base. It's something that we have noticed about our music. So after you stop playing in some mode and you take a little bit of time off, it's kind of, I don't know, like tasting port wine and then sniffing coffee. It like resets your it resets your brain to think, oh, okay, well now I'm going to play C. That's the starting note, and then that becomes number one, and D becomes number two, and it. Wow, it sounds like a whole different scale. It doesn't sound like a major scale, right?
Hmm.
And that's the deal. It's each one of these gives a different color because you're using the set of these notes in a different way. The Lydian scale is a little bit different than the other scales we've had because because it doesn't mirror anything, but also you'll notice that it has a half step in between the two tetrachords. So you get whole, 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 whole. It sounds vaguely exotic because we're so used to having a half step in there somewhere, right? So when you get a bunch of whole steps, da 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 da. Wow, that's kind of weird, you know. So, but we use it for color in folk music and in jazz, and then you get the half step. Oops, D E F sharp, and then this whole half looks like the top half of a major scale. So so we often associate Lydian with the major, where the and we'll talk about this more, the family of modes when we get there, but that whole half makes it relate to that scale. The fifth degree is Mixolydian. Oh, I forgot to put the little lines under Mixolydian and under Locrian. Okay, so but we get the first tetrachord, whole half. Wow, that looks like the bottom of a major scale for Mixolydian. And then we get a hole in the middle, and then we got whole half whole. Whereas we see whole half whole, we saw that up on the Dorian. So Mixolydian goes D. So it's kind of it's like a major scale, but with the seventh degree instead of having this a C sharp, so that's a half step away on the top. There's a whole step away. So this is a big one to use in folk music and kind of in bluesy music. The one that we're really interested in today is the sixth degree, the minor scale. The Locrian we don't use so much, so I'm not even going to take time discussing that one today. We'll just know that that exists on the seventh degree of the scale. Because there are some problems with where the fifth lies, there's a tritone. We don't use it. That 1 to 5 in Locrian we call Diabolus in Musica, or the devil in music, and therefore we avoid it except if we're doing some avant-garde things. The one we're totally interested in today is the minor scale. Because why? Because in our system of Western music, we've decided that major and minor are the two modes that we use predominantly for various reasons. All right, so here we have, let me go back up here. Here we have the bottom tetrachord, whole, half, whole. So we get E, F sharp, G, A. E, F sharp, G, A. Then we get a hole in the middle, and then we get half, whole, whole. And that's what we saw up here on this Dorian. So the minor scale sounds like this. So what is the difference between major and minor? The the thing that tells our ear most immediately that it's minor and not major, here minor, is that in major you get whole, whole, half, which means here you get 4 frets worth of spacing, and we'll talk about this later, but we get 4 frets worth of spacing, so we get this kind of sound between G and B. G, A, B, G, A, B. So that B is a little wider than on the 1, 2, 3, on the third. Where's A? 1. So it's a little wider. So here we have, actually I'll just do it here and make it a B flat. So you see I have the half step here between 2 and 3 instead of 3 and 4. So this here we have 3 frets, E, E, F, F sharp, G. It's 3 frets away instead of 4 frets away. So that relationship right there is what makes something major or minor. The third degree of the scale is wider in a major scale than a minor scale. Okay, so the steps will be whole, whole, half. Here it'll be whole, half, because we've moved, instead of a whole step, we've moved this note over 1, so it'd be right in there, half. Okay, are there any questions about that? It's a little confusing till we do it, but we'll do it. So let's go down to the minor scale. And you can either play it on an E string if you have it, or a D string. I don't care. Let me go over to my guitar so I have an E string. Okay, here we go. So you're either, if you have an E string, you can start there. If you have a D string, you can start here. Okay, so we're going to start on E. Everybody play an E. Now you're going to go up 2 frets to F sharp, whole step, half step, and then a whole step. Let's only go that far because that's your bottom tetrachord. Okay, let's try that again. E, F, G is a half step, A. Did everybody get that? So let's just stop and do a little experiment here. Instead of going E, F sharp, G, let's make this a whole step here instead of a half step, and that makes the half step here. So we go E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Okay, try that. E, F, G sharp, A. So the third degree in that case is wider, okay, in G sharp. That would be a major scale. Now if we go back and play E, F sharp, G, A, E, F sharp, G, A. That's a minor scale. So that moving that third degree either up or down is what tells your ear something is major or minor. And when we get to chords, we'll be looking at that relationship. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's play the whole scale now. So we start on E, F sharp, G, A is a whole step, B is a whole step, in the middle. Then the top tetrachord is half step, whole step, whole step. Okay, let's do that again. Bottom is whole, half, whole. The top is half, whole, whole. So it's not mirrored like the major scale. Whole, half, whole, whole in the middle, half, whole, whole. That's the formula for a minor scale. Let's try it again. Whole, up to F sharp is your whole. Half step to G. Whole step to A. Whole step in the middle, B. Now our upper tetrachord goes half, whole, whole. So we get half, whole, whole. Let's do this one more time. E. Up a whole to F sharp. Half to G. A. Whole in the middle. Upper tetrachord, half, whole, whole. Okay, so because I want to get on to chords tonight and to the other pentatonic scales, I'm not going to have you play it down, and I'm not going to fold it over because you folks now have the skills to be able to fold a scale over, right? You play up until you reach. Do you have the skills to do it? So you would play. Cynthia, I can't hear you. Let me unmute you. Ugh. Hold it. Cynthia, can you unmute for a second? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I just did. Sorry, I thought you were going to unmute me. Yeah, I'm just learning from what I learned from last week as far as folding over. So otherwise,
Yeah, so if you're on your bass string, you'd go E, F sharp, G. Instead of playing A here, you'd play on the open string. So instead of following it up, you just, anytime a new string with that letter name opens up, that's where you fold it over.
Yeah, okay.
All right. And so play through it and see what you can do. If you have problems, then get back to me, send me an email or something, and I'll help you out. Okay? Just take a minute and help you out. All right. Pentatonic scales. Pentatonic are 5-note scales that are used in blues, rock, jazz, folk music all over the world. And you guys who play any kind of blues or rock music will recognize the sounds. We can conceive of the pentatonic scale as a major or minor scale with a few notes removed. Okay, so what we've got here is we're taking out what the ear perceives as dissonant notes. So we're taking out scale degrees 4 and 7. So 1, 2, 3. 4 would be the C right here that we're not going to play. 5 is D, 6 is E, and then there's an F sharp right here that we're not going to play. So that leaves us with 5 notes. So starting on your G string, if you play G, you go up 2 frets to A, you go up 2 frets to B, now you go up 1, 2, 3 frets to D, 2 frets to E, and 3 frets to G. Let's try that again. G, up a whole step to A, up a whole step to B. Now we go up 3 frets. That would be 3 half steps. That gives you D. Go up 2 frets, whole step to E. Go up 3 half steps or a step and a half to G. If I fold this over, it sounds like this. Right? And play a funky little rhythm. And we can make little melodies, little blues, major blues melodies out of that. scale. Okay? That's what a pentatonic scale is, and that's what's happening. We're taking out some of the dissonances, and so this works over many different chords without having to go through the process of worrying about so much what's dissonant and what's not. So let's look at the modes of the pentatonic scale. So because there are only 5 notes, there are 5 modes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what? I left the major scale degrees here, but and I did that to relate it to the major scale. But so you get this. The first one would be G, A, B, then the step and a half, 3 half steps, D, E, G, and then the next one would be a Dorian type, where you get a whole step here, the 3 half steps. The modes that we use most often in blues are this major one and the minor one here in E. Sometimes in types of folk music, Asian, whatnot, I don't want to take time to play through these. You can play through these yourself because we're not doing the mode intensive. I just wanted you to know what they were. But here's the mode for the minor. So if we start on E, and you go up 3 half steps, G, A, whole step to B, 3 half steps to D, and a whole step to E. Let's try that again. E, there you go, 3 half steps to G, whole step to A, we get a step and a half, go to D, whole step and a half, and then we get a whole step to I think I screwed something up there. I spaced out for a second. E, up 3 frets to G, up 2 frets to A, up 2 frets to B, 3 to D, and E. And so if we fold it over, that gives us our basic blues, the kind of minor blues scale that we often use. And again, as I said, in a mode intensive, I'll look at these scales and we'll look at each one with an example from music to let you know how it works. And that's what I have on scales and modes. Any questions at this point? I mean, this just tells you what it is, and I haven't really told you how to use it. But if no questions, we're going to go on to chords. Okay? Stop share. And now, there it is. There we go. Okay, so this is Mommy, where do chords come from? They come from the chord store. No, they're the last bit of music theory that we're going to talk about. So I wanted to go back and look at our picture of music theory. The chromatic scale, where we had the environment of every single fret and the environment where sharps and flats and naturals acted on one single note at a time. And then we just finished looking at major, minor scales, mode, and the pentatonic scales that are derived from the chromatic scale by formulas, by tetrachords, or by modified tetrachords if you're looking at the at the pentatonic scales. That is major scales with notes removed. And now chords are the next highest level where we're going to derive the chords from the major and minor scales by a formula. Individual members of the chords may be altered by chromatics according to the rule of the chromatic scale environment. Jazz players and blues players do this all the time to confuse your ear as to what kind of chord you're playing. Keys are determined by what note a scale is started on and affects both the chords and the scale working together. So in the chord environment, you're going to be working within a key. That is, the key signature that you had derived, your major minor scale, applies to the chords as well. Chords are the vertical structure, the scales are the horizontal structure. All right, so we just looked at this, the major scale review. We just looked at that with the two tetrachords. So this you need to keep in mind because we're going to lay our chords over the major scale. Chords are vertical structures derived from scales. Notes of the chord may be either played all together at the same time as when plucks or strums, or may be played one at a time as when somebody plays an arpeggio, like. It's still a chord, we're just playing notes instead of all together, we're playing them one at a time. Or sometimes we have a chord that's part of a melody, where sometimes you'll be going. So, and then, I mean, there are many fiddle tunes that are made up of things where you're going. That kind of thing. That's an arpeggiated chord, but it's used as a melodic function. So let's take a peek at these chords now. So we're going to start with triads. These are 3-note chords. Triads are 3-note chords and form the basis of our Western system of harmony. Any chord that has just a letter name with no suffix is a 3-note chord, or if it has the suffix of minor. So major, minor are 3-note chords. And I'll get to this. So here's the basic formula. Starting anywhere, you choose 3 notes, skipping every other note. So for example, we'll go back to our G string. So we play our G right here. So everybody play a G. All right, there's your G. Now you're going to skip the A, and then you're going to go up and you're going to play the B. All right, so we get G. You don't play the A, but you play the B. All right, that's on the 4th. You don't play what's on the 5th fret. You skip that note. So then you go up to the 7th fret, and that's D. And by using that formula, you've just made a chord. G is the open G string. The B is on the, if you're on a G string, the B is on the 4th fret, and the D is on the 7th fret. So you're skipping A and C. Everybody understand that? That's the basic idea. And you can start anywhere, any one of these notes. So there will be 7 different chords that we generate from this scale, because there are 7 scale degrees. You want me to run over that again, or does everybody have that? Okay, here we go. So now, what I'd like to do is look at okay, so when we do this, it generates the notes G, B, and D. Parts of the chord are named from the bottom up. So what we have here is the root, and this is the 3rd because it's 3 notes of the scale up, right? You're skipping the 2nd, And then you're skipping the fourth and you get the fifth. So G is the root, B is the third, D is the fifth. That's how we talk about parts of the chord. Root, third, fifth. Everybody got that? Okay. Now, here's the other part of determining what this thing is. The chord is named after its root. So this would be a G something. Okay? G, B, D. So what happens here is no matter where you put the chord, and you'll see this in a minute, in the chord environment, even if we start on A and go A, C, E, the bottom note A we still call the root. The third is the fifth. A, C would be the third, and E would be the fifth. We call the note names according to the place along the scale measuring from the root. All right, this is a different environment than the major scale. The major scale has the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But no matter where we start, whatever the bottom note of those three is what we call the root of that chord. A, and then a third, and then a fifth. Okay? All right, here's the next thing. Notice that B, the third, is 4 half steps or frets from G. All right, so if we measure this, we get G, G sharp, A sharp, B. All right, so we get the distance of 4 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we get G, B, to the third. All right. Now notice that between the third and the fifth, there are 3 half steps. Okay, so we get B, C, C sharp, D. So those are 3 half steps. This formula tells us that this is a major triad. A major triad has between the root and the third 4 half steps, and you can see it outlaid here. G, B, and between the third and the fifth, it has 3 half steps. That's the sound. That's what determines a major chord sound. 4 half steps on the bottom, 3 half steps on the top. Okay, so let's try this. You can make this. You can either play with your index finger up and down, or you can put your index finger on B and your pinky finger on D, and just play open G. Index finger on B on the 4th fret, pinky finger on D on the 5th fret, 7th fret. Someday I'll learn to count. That's the 7th fret. So we do that again. G. Up 4 half steps is B for the 3rd. Up 3 on the 7th fret for the 5th is D. Let's do that again. G, B, D. Now we play it backwards. Start on the D and go backwards. D, down 3 frets, down 4 frets. We do that again. Keep track of those half steps. Just visualize them. 3 half steps down, 4 half steps down. Does everybody understand that? Okay, that's this is the definition of a major chord, a major triad. All right, so we're going to generate the next triad up the scale, starting on A, as I had said. So what we're going to do is you're going to start at the 2nd fret, A. Okay, and now we got it. We're not going to. This won't be a major scale. We're going to generate the next chord in G major. So you're going to play the A, you're going to skip the B, you're going to play the C, skip the D, and you're going to play the E. So it's A, C, E. So that's the second chord that we find available to us in the key of G major. So let's all play A. Okay, B is 2 frets away, and we're going to skip that. So you go up 1 more fret to the 5th fret. That's C. And you're going to go up 2 frets, and you're going to skip the D, and you're going to go up another 2 frets, and you're going to play the E. So you get A. It's on the 2nd fret. C. That's on the 5th fret. E. That's on the 9th fret. Let's do that again. A. C. E. Okay, so if we remove all the major scale stuff that we just derived it from, this is the chord that we're left with. We have A, C, and E that we just played. Now, if we notice where the half steps are, from A to C, you'll see there are 3 half steps. So A sharp, B, C. So between root and third, there are 3 half steps. Good. And now from C to E, there are 4 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, okay. Right? So since we're now at the level of music theory that operates by the rule of chords, as I was saying, we no longer call A the 2nd degree as we do in the scale environment. Right here in G, the G major scale, we call A the 2nd because we're measuring it up the scale in the scale. When we're in the chord, we're measuring from the root of the chord, not the root of the scale. This is the chord environment. So we always measure from the root. So we call A the root. We would call C the 3rd because it's 3 notes of the scale up. And we call E the 5th because it's 5 notes of the scale up. All right? Does that make sense? Totally different environment. So now we're going to notice the half and whole step, or how many half steps there are in this. So from A to C, there are 3 half steps. From C to E, there are 4 half steps. Okay? And we've already played that minor scale, right? So I'm just going to move ahead unless there are any questions. You can work on that. Unless, well, you know what? Let's play it so you have it on the video to play with me. So let's go. We'll play it forward 3 times and then back 3 times. So we'll start on A. A. 5th fret C. 9th fret E. We'll do that again. A. 5th fret is C. It's 3 half steps away. Now to E, 4 half steps away. That's the 5th. One more time. Go. And then E. Now let's play it backwards. E, C, A. So we get E, 4 half steps, C, 3 half steps, A. We go back to E and do it again. E, C, 4 half steps away, A is 3 half steps. One more time. A, C, E. Now we play it forward and backwards. All right? We'll repeat the top note. Here we go. A, C, E. Now backwards. E, C, A. Good. We do that again. A, C, E, E, C, A. That's good. I'm going to move on. All right? Everybody got that? So this is the formula that lets us know that this is a minor chord. 3 half steps on the bottom, 4 half steps on the top. Okay, the major scale was 4 half steps on the bottom, 3 half steps on the top. They're flipped over. And I'll draw a picture of this in a moment for you. So as you can see, our triads are made up of 2 different increments of half steps, either 3 or 4. The 4 half step increment is called a major third. A major third is wide. Why is it called a third? Because it's the third step up the scale from whatever the root of the chord is that you're skipping. You're playing the root, skipping the second, and playing the third. So if it's 4 frets wide, it's called a major third. If it's 3 half steps wide, it's called a minor third. Major third, minor third. This is really important, and we found this same thing in the scale. In the major scale versus minor scale, well, the 3rd degree of the scale was wider, and then it was shorter because we flipped where the half step was. So it's really important to visualize 4 fret interval, or 4 half step interval rather, major third, 3 half increment, minor third. So these intervals are often abbreviated with a capital letter denoting major. So anytime we do something major, we'll capitalize it. Major third, capital M3. And a minor third is lowercase m3. All right? So the quality of the triad, that is the quality of the chord that you're listening to, is identified by analyzing the arrangement of the third measured from the bottom to the top. So as we saw, the formula for the major triad is a major third on the bottom, minor third on the top. The formula for the minor triad reverses this formula. Okay? So, and I'm going to be a little tricky and just do it right here in G instead of doing it in A. So what happens is and I should have done this in G, but we can do it together. So we have the minor third on the bottom, and then the major third on the top. And just by moving the 4th fret to the 3rd fret in G, you turn it into a G minor chord. So you get G major, B is at the 4th fret because it's a major third away, and then the minor third. Now if you take this finger and slide it back one, now you've made that a minor third. You've made the shorter interval from G to B flat, and then the longer 4 half steps on top. Major, index finger at the 3rd fret, minor. This subtle difference tells your ear whether it's a major chord or a minor chord, or a major scale or minor scale for that matter. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay, there are 2 other triad types that are generated with these formulas. That is a pair of thirds. The first is called the Diminished Triad, that has 2 minor thirds stacked. This chord will be found naturally occurring on the 7th degree of the major scale. So what happens is we get a minor third, and then we get another minor third. So if you play G, up 3 half steps to B flat, and then up another 3 half steps to D flat, I guess. So 3rd fret, 6th fret. That's a diminished chord. Okay, and we'll find that as we go along. The next type of chord that we have is called an augmented chord, and we're not going to find that naturally occurring till we start altering minor scales. But the definition is right here. There's a major third on the bottom and a major third on the top. So if we play G and then we play a major third up, that puts our index finger at the 4th fret. And then we play at the 6th fret, that gives us another major third. That's an augmented triad. Augmented refers to the fact is that we're taking the 5th degree of the scale, that is the D for us, and augmenting it or moving it a fret wider. That's why it's called an augmented scale, augmented chord. All right, so those are our chord qualities. For us, what we're mostly interested in is this idea of major and minor, because most of the chords that you folks are using are major or minor. And every once in a while, you'll come into a diminished triad. All right, any questions so far? Isn't that interesting how just by flipping these, you get a totally different chord quality? Never ceases to amaze me. All right, so what I've done here is, let me just review how far we're going to go here. What I've done here is generated the rest of the chords in G major and laid them out here. I'll do this quickly, but I think you can look at these at home. So starting on the root B gives us a B minor triad. So we get B, skip the C. Here, I got to do it here. B, skip the C, play D, skip the E, choose F sharp. And once we generate that out, we find 3 half steps, 4 half steps. That is a minor third, major third. That's our definition for a minor chord. So starting on B, or the 3rd degree of the scale, that gives us a minor chord. And I'm just going to rush through this so we have time to, you can play these at home because I think you can figure out where it is. Starting on C, that is the 4th degree of the scale, you play C, skip D, you choose E, skip F sharp, you choose G. That gives us 4 half steps, or a major third on the bottom, 3 half steps, a minor third on top. So the 4th degree of the scale is going to generate out as major. So you get C, E, G. Let's keep going. Starting on D, or the 5th degree of the scale, gives us this. D, you skip E, you play F sharp, you skip G, you play A. All right, so on the 5th degree of the scale, if we analyze that, we get 4 half steps to F sharp, 3 half steps to A, so it's a major third on the bottom and a minor third on the top. So the D is D, F sharp, A. That's a major chord. It's our definition of major chord. Starting on the 6th degree of the scale, which is E, we play E, skip F sharp, we play G, skip A, we play B. So if we analyze that out, E, we get 3 half steps on the bottom, 4 half steps on the top. So it's the minor third on the bottom, major on the top. That's our definition of a minor chord. So the 6th degree of the scale, the chord that lives there, is E minor. So we get E, G, B. And then starting on F sharp, that's the funny one. So that's our 7th degree of the scale. And because we have a half step here and we have a half step here, there are going to be 2 half steps. It makes things a little narrower. So we play F sharp, we skip G, we play A, we skip B, we choose C. And when we lay this out, we get F sharp is 3 half steps, F sharp to A, and then A to C is 3 half steps. So we get a minor third on the bottom, a minor third on the top, and that's our definition of a diminished chord. Does everybody understand what I've done? You can play through these yourself and look at these, over the week. But I wanted to show you where chords came from. Moving on, chords are generated from the scale. As triads are generated from the scale, they are numbered using the same system as scale degrees. While in the scale environment, one uses Arabic numbers, either the qualifier as root, third, fifth, etc., fourth, or sometimes with a caret. So sometimes you'll see 1 caret, 2 caret. That 1 is the root, that's the second. I'm talking about major scale. So G, A, B, etc. When we analyze or try to name the chords in a key to distinguish them from the notes, we use Roman numerals. Okay, so if we're in the key of G and we want to talk about the chords in the key of G, we talk about them using the names 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but we notate them with Roman numerals. If the chord is major, we use an uppercase letter. If they're minor, we use a lowercase letter. So when we just generated all those chords out up top, we found that the 1 chord is G major, so it's Roman numeral 1. 2 chord is A minor, because it fit the formula. 3 chord is B minor. The 4 chord is C major. The 5 chord is D major. The 6 chord is E minor. And the 7th chord is F sharp diminished, which brings us back to G. So when we use diminished, we use a little degree sign. See the little bitty degree sign there? So that tells us it's a diminished chord, 7 diminished, because we take the idea is you take a minor chord and you make the 5th just 1 fret lower. So we use that. That's what the diminished refers to. These chord qualities hold true for every major key. And then next week we're going to start looking at progressions. We're going to start looking at why 1, 4, and 5 are the underpinnings of our harmony. And then what happens with some of these other chords. But this week what we've done is we've generated them out, and now you understand where these chords are in a key and how we got there. Every other note, starting on every degree of the scale. That's how we make our chords. Any questions so far about triads? No? We're good? You can always email me. And if you have questions about this before next week, go ahead and email me, or give me a Zoomer or something, and I'll get it straight for you, because next week we're going to start using these chords in songs, because that's what we do. All right, one other thing I wanted to talk to you about is generating the 5-7 chord for more tension. On the 5th degree of the scale, we often, instead of, when we play G, in the key of G, instead of playing a D chord, we often play D7. Why do we do that? Because there's a lot more tension in a D chord, which then will resolve to G. And again, I'll explain more about this next time, but I wanted to show you how we get there. So on D, which is the 5th degree of the scale, we often, instead of playing a 3-note chord, we play this 4-note chord called the dominant 7th, or the 5-7, or D7. So all we do is we add one more third up the ladder here. So we choose D, skip E. Choose F sharp, skip G. Choose A, and then we go one more third up, skip B. Choose C. So we get this, D, F sharp, I'm sorry, G, D, we skip E, we play F sharp, we skip G, we play A, skip B and C. So we get this kind of sound, D, F sharp, A, C, and I didn't do it up the, I should have done it here, D, F sharp, A, C. That's the sound of a D7 or a dominant 7 chord. Again, you can do this out on a D string if you want to take it lower down, but the idea here is you get a major chord on the bottom, so you get 4 half steps plus the 3 half steps, so major third, minor third, and then on top of that there's another minor third. Okay, so you get 4 half steps, 3 half steps, 3 half steps, so it's D, F sharp, A, C. So, any questions about that? So whenever you see something 7, that's how those chords are generated. You can make a G major 7 by starting on G, and it would be, but I'm not going to go into the formulas of all of this, but it's any kind of 7 is a 4-note chord. But for our purposes, we're mostly interested on the one that starts on 5, because that gives us tension in the key. So as I said, the formula for 5-7 is major third on the bottom, a minor third above that, and a minor third above that. So often the 5-7 chord is called the dominant 7th. The 5th degree of a major scale is often called dominant because it is the place of most tension in a scale or key. And we'll look at this more when we deal with the action of the chords next time. But if you play G and then you play D, da, dum, well, our composition isn't finished until we do this. Back to G, da, dum, dum. Or if we play G, D7, I can't leave it there. It has to go back here. It's the way we make tension in a key. So that place of 5 is called the dominant because it's the most tense, and the number 1 place in the key is called the tonic because it's the place of rest. So just to reiterate, we've generated 4 types of chords: major, minor, diminished, and dominant 7th, or 5-7. And we briefly touched on the augmented chord, although that's sort of outside of the scope of what we're doing here. New chord members can be generated up the scale by thirds over 2 octaves, giving us the triad 3-note chord, 7th, 9th, 11, and 13. And these are what jazz players do. They just keep adding another third up and up and up. Again, beyond the scope of what we're doing here, but you ought to know about this. That's how they're making those chords. Other members of the chords, such as 6 and 4, can be added to a triad, a chord, under certain conditions. So when you see something like G6, you're taking a G chord, and then you're adding the 6th degree of that G to it. So G, A, B, C, D, E. So you play a G chord and you add an E to it, and that becomes your G6. Again, beyond the scope of what you're doing, but I wanted to let you know where those numbers come from. The 4 we often see as a sus4, where we're adding the 4th and taking away the 3. So in G, that would be a C. Take, or, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. Or let me take away the B. So that's what you get. sus4 is adding the 4th degree of the G scale. All right, so let's talk about folding chords over the strings. So what we did, so if we're on guitar, what we're doing is you play the G, you don't play the A, which is here, but we're going to play the B, but instead of playing it up the string like we did here, you're going to play G, and then you'll play the open B, you'll fold it over there, then you play the D, and then you play the G up here. So that's the basic triad, and then you get that. G, B, D, G. You got that, guitars? G, B is open, D, and then there's another G the octave above. Let's go look at banjos. And Katie's not here with a banjo tonight, but I'm going to grab mine anyways. So for banjo, what we get is, banjo is pretty easy. So you get G, skip the A here, you're going to play the B there, skip the C, you're going to play the D there, and then the octave higher is the G there. So in banjos, it's just straight across G, B, D, and then another G up here, or the open fifth string there. So that's how chords are folded over on the banjo. So let's go look at the mandolin. So on the mandolin, same thing as we're going to fold. So we'll start on the G string down here, and we play up a B right there. And now we fold the D over to the D string, G, and then we just continue to do that across wherever you find the next B, D, G. G, B, D, G. Let's go and look at the uke. Oh, I forgot to bring my uke home. All right, that's fine. Uke, what we get is we get the G here up to the 4th fret to the B. Then D is on the 2nd fret on the 4th string, and then the G is the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. And that's just folding it over. I know I'm hopping down an octave, but that, that pesky 4th string tuned an octave higher. But that's where you get G on the 4th string, B, 4th fret, D on the C string, 2nd fret, G on the 3rd fret. Any questions about folding over? And then there's just one other thing that I want to talk about in terms of chords, and that is how we get our traditional chord shapes. So what we do, let's go back to guitar. What we do with our traditional chord shapes is use the concept of doubling of notes. This is important. Like a scale, think of a chord as a set of notes, like a mathematical set. So when we play the chord and make the chord on these instruments, it doesn't really matter what order they're in until we're using them to arrange. So what we do to make the shapes is try to figure out how to double these notes to make them fit on your instrument. To hear the basic chord quality, most of the time one needs the 3 notes or 4 members of the chord. So 3 notes if it's a triad, 4 if it's a 7th. When a familiar chord shapes are constructed for plucked instruments, notes are doubled. Any of the notes can be doubled at an octave, and it doesn't change the fact that it's still a G chord. You're just doubling notes. So, for example, here are the note doublings of the G chord for the instruments that we have in the class. So this is from the low string, that is whatever string is closer to your chin, on over. So for guitar, what we get for the G chord is this, the basic G chord. We get G, B, D. The 3rd string is an open G. It's doubled. And then we get another B doubled at the 2nd string open, and then another G. So we get this basic G shape that everybody has come to love and know. So this one is rich in roots. So there are 3 Gs, 2 Bs, and 1 D. It's still a G major because when we generate out G major, the G major chord is GBD. And then wherever you make these combinations of GBD all over the neck, that's going to give you different inversions of G chords. but it's still a G sound. Banjo. Banjo is pretty easy. I have mine tuned with a low C, but what you get is G, G, the high G string. D is open, G, B, D. If you're playing a bluegrass or a typical G-tuned banjo. Banjo is it's tuned to an open chord. What's next? Mandolin. The mandolin. Okay, so look at the doubling here. We get 2 G's on the banjo. We get 2 D's and 1 B. On the mandolin, we get G, D, B, and a G. So the 2 G's are doubled. So G, D, B, G. And then on the uke, we get, you know how to play a G chord, right? So, yeah, so you get G, and then you get a D with your index finger, and then you get the G with the third finger that's on the second string, and then you get a B at the second fret, that's the first string. So what have you doubled? You doubled G's, you have 2 G's, 1 D, and 1 B, and it all adds up to equal G major. So you can do this with any chord on your instrument, and that's how they come up with the chord shapes. How do the chords best fit on the neck through doubling to make your chord shapes? And that's the end of my dissertation on chords for today. Any questions? Go ahead and unmute everybody, and we'll chat about it here. And any questions about all of that? I know I dumped a lot on you there, but hopefully it's pretty clear about how this all works.
Very clear.
Very good.
Yeah, so if you don't have any questions, next week what I'm going to do is we're going to look at chord progressions. These chord progressions, typical chord progressions, where are they? Way back here. When we talk about 1, 4, and 5, we're talking about these here and how chords tend to move one place or another to generate tension. And so I think that once you go through that and listen to the various chord progressions and how they work in different songs, I think you'll start to have a greater appreciation of how these tunes work and how composers work to put together tunes and drive the tension and release the tension through these chords. So,
Michael?
yes.
One of the things, this is more of a comment that maybe you could expand upon if it strikes you in some way, but that you are teaching something. I've been messing around with this stuff for 40 some odd years, and I have never understood until you talked about scales as the horizontal and the chords as the vertical. Because right from the beginning, I was always taught, and it was very overwhelming. It was chords and everything was vertical. And on the guitar, God, you got 6 strings and all these damn notes.
Right.
So what you've done is by laying this thing out horizontally first, and then introducing this concept that I find very intriguing of folding over.
Yes.
It's really the first time I've come to understand how the heck this stuff actually fits together.
Yeah, it took me a long time to codify this system of thinking about music theory as it relates to the guitar. And of course, my first instrument was violin, and then I had classical piano, and then I had guitar. So the violin is very similar to the guitar in terms of being a matrix and having the opportunity to choose the same note 3 times if you're playing an E, sometimes 4. You know, like which one do I choose? Where does it go? Why? Etc.
Uh-huh.
So and then the pianist-centric music theory doesn't help us guitarists because, like you said, most of us grew up playing chords instead of, or if we played melody, folded it over right away. You know, your teachers taught you 3 notes on one string and then 2 notes on another. It's like, oh man, really? How does this work? So by laying it out on a string, somewhat like Pythagoras did with his monochord. If you've ever studied, anyways, that I do history, so but he had a whole system laid out on what he called a monochord, and it's like, wow, that's our string. That's our string. If you can understand that along a string and then understand how the strings are folded over, that's how the guitar works.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully this illuminates. Again, in 4 weeks I didn't really have time to go into deep depth, but enough to like have you start thinking about where do scales come from? Where do chords come from? Why do we call something major or minor? Why does a chord sound like it sounds? Why does a scale, sound like it sounds?
Yes.
I feel like I'm getting ahead, a step ahead or something, just because I'm just learning guitar. So I'm learning all this now instead of having 40 years of,
Yeah, and that's okay. It's like, as you learn about guitar and you think about this stuff, it's like, okay, well now, now I know why I'm using a D7 instead of a D. Even though you're maybe not far along technically, you'll have the knowledge as you start learning to.
Right, exactly, and start knowing how to put it all together.
Yeah, it
in
may
a way
come
that
to,
makes sense.
it'll make sense instead
Right.
of, yeah. I remember learning, or trying to learn certain things.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
Great. Anything else?
Oh, very good.
Good. All right. So I'll see y'all next week, and as before, I'll pull together the PDF before so you can scan ahead and.
That's helpful. Very helpful for me.
Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll have actual tunes. We'll do, I don't know, something like "Skip to My Lou" or Crawdad Song or something. It goes 1-5-1, and we'll do a blues tune 1-4-5. But I'll pick a bunch of tunes that and show you how they work with these chords. So it'll be fun. All right, good.
Great.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. See y'all next time.
Yep.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Michael.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.